Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into Santa Cruz de la Sierra, where the real estate market is absolutely on fire, but maybe not in the neighborhood you'd expect. We're headed south to figure out exactly what is driving the massive surge in this part of the city.
For years, right, all the buzz has been about the north. You hear Urubao, you hear Equipitol. But what if the next huge property boom is already happening, kind of quietly, somewhere else? In this explainer, we're going to investigate whether the southern zone is the city's real new frontier for real estate.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the surge itself. Then, we'll meet the agents leading the charge. We'll decode what's actually for sale, hunt for the real value, unpack the story they're telling buyers, and wrap it all up with a winning strategy for agents. Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, the southern surge. Now, before we get into all the juicy details, let's be really clear about where our data comes from. To make sure our analysis is super sharp and credible, all of our data is pulled directly from the Statetty app. We drew a circle on the map, a 7-kilometer radius around the Guillermo Elder Bell refinery, and we only looked at properties listed in the last 3 months. This gives us a real-time, super accurate snapshot of what's happening on the ground right now.
All right, Section 2. Let's meet the market leaders. So who's really driving this market? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating because it totally depends on how you measure winning.
If we're looking at just the sheer number of listings, pure volume, Pupi Barella from Century 21 is the undisputed champ. The strategy here is all about quantity. It's about getting a high number of affordable commercial spaces on the market. It's a numbers game, and it tells us there's a huge appetite for smaller, more accessible investments in the South.
But watch what happens when we flip the script from volume to total value. The leaderboard completely changes. Suddenly, you see agents like Blanca Elena Panaguaneri from RE Max at the top. She's not dealing in dozens of small shops, she's dealing in massive multi-million-dollar plots of land. This shows us there are really two different economies at play here. A high-volume game for small investors, and a high-value one for the big strategic players.
Okay, Section 3. So we know who the key players are, but what are they actually selling? Let's break down the property mix and see what really defines the southern market.
The data here is, wow, it's overwhelming. The South is all about horizontal growth. Houses and raw land make up a whopping 75% of all listings. Now, think about the vertical skylines in Equipetol. Well, here, apartments are just a tiny 10% slice of the pie. This is a market that's built to spread out, not to build up.
Now, if we zoom in on the residential options, the value proposition for families just becomes crystal clear. For just a little bit more in price, the average house gives you double the constructed space of an apartment. It's obvious this market is made for families who want more room to breathe, not a high-rise lifestyle. All right, on to Section 4, where we find the real value. Not all land in the South is created equal. By breaking it down by price per square meter, we can pinpoint exactly where the smart money is flowing.
This chart, right here, this basically reveals the value map of the South. The established corridor along Avenida Santos Dumont, yeah, it commands the highest prices, but just look over at Plan 3000. Your dollar buys you more than double the space there. For buyers who are hunting for maximum value, this is a massive, flashing neon sign.
Section 5. The southern pitch. The numbers are compelling for sure, but we all know real estate is sold on stories. So what's the narrative that's pulling people and their money down south?
Looking across hundreds of listings, a really clear story emerges. Agents aren't just selling 4 walls and a roof, they're selling the future. The key words you see over and over are growth potential, revaluation, and strategic location. They're selling the idea of being close to new malls and hospitals, positioning the South as the smart move for both your family and your portfolio.
And this quote from a real listing just perfectly captures all that excitement. It says, "Just steps from the new Ventura Mall Sur, a zone of high appreciation and in full development." See that language? The mall isn't just a mall, it's an economic anchor. It's a promise that the value of the entire area is going up, up, up.
So, finally, Section 6, a winning strategy. What does all this data mean for you? Let's boil it all down into a simple, actionable playbook for success in the southern zone. For new agents, the playbook is simple. Go micro. I mean, really micro. Master one specific neighborhood or one type of property and become the absolute go-to expert.
For you experienced agents, this data is your new superpower. Use that price per square meter analysis to nail your pricing and to dominate your negotiations. And for everyone, and I mean everyone, remember this: collaborate. Your best client is very often another agent who has the perfect buyer for your listing or the perfect home for your buyer. Teamwork makes the dream work, for real.
So we end where we started, but with a much bigger question. The southern surge is real, there is no doubt about that. But is this just one neighborhood's moment in the sun? Or are we actually seeing the first tremors of a fundamental citywide shift in how Santa Cruz is going to grow for the next decade? That's the thought we'll leave you with. Thanks for watching The Explainer.